Good morning and welcome. You're watching World News and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. Russian forces launched a series of overnight attacks across Ukraine on July 18th, killing one person and wounding at least 5 others, according to local authorities. In the Kharkiv region, a strike on the city of Chukiv left 4 people wounded. The local mayor reported that the victims, all of whom received medical treatment, were injured when Russian forces targeted a residential area. The attack caused significant damage to multiple homes, a medical office, and an educational facility. Emergency crews were quickly dispatched to assess the situation and begin repairs. In Zaporizhia region, Russian forces launched a wave of at least 9 Shahed drones targeting the regional center. Governor Ivan Fedorov confirmed that 79-year-old man was injured in the strike. The same day, another attack on the town of Stepnohirsk tragically killed a 64-year-old man. U.S. President Donald Trump recently said he would be willing to send more weapons to Ukraine if Europe pays for them. In an interview for TVP INFO, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski spoke on whether or not the EU will underwrite such deals, adding that frozen Russian assets should be used to finance Ukraine's defense capabilities.
If
the US doesn't approve a new military aid package, then with time, the weapons produced for Ukraine under the Biden administration will run out. Then it becomes a European decision. And we have a choice. Either finance them using EU funds, which at the end of the day are funds belonging to EU taxpayers, or finance them using the aggressor's money. And please, don't ask me which option I prefer. These funds were frozen in Belgium, and Belgium says, to no one's surprise, that it can't be left alone with the potential legal consequences. Belgium asks that this decision becomes an EU decision, so that the whole of the EU takes responsibility for it, in solidarity. And it's right. However, there are still member states that have reservations. The closer we are to the end of the year, when we have to allocate additional funds to uphold the statehood of Ukraine and its defensive capabilities, the more important that argument becomes. The US took part in a consortium that paid Ukraine an advance on interest from those frozen assets. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. However, in my opinion, the assets themselves should be used. Pay off the loan and use the rest to finance Ukraine.
With war raging just outside the borders of Poland, a neighbor of both Russia and Ukraine, the state of the country's military preparedness has become a focal point of national debate. A recent survey conducted by Ibris for the daily Rzeczpospolita reveals a surprising shift in public opinion, showing a decline in confidence regarding the country's defense readiness. According to the latest poll, 44.1% of Poles believe the Polish army is ready to defend the country in the event of Russian aggression, but almost as many, 43.7%, disagree. These results show a significant drop in optimism over the last several months, with confidence in the army's readiness falling by more than 10 percentage points since autumn of 2024. The poll shows more optimism in Generation Z respondents, as well as older people in their 50s, while those in their 30s are notably more pessimistic. Despite the government's push to ramp up defense spending to 5% of GDP, questions remain about the effectiveness of Poland's military preparations. A major data breach involving British special forces and intelligence agents has come to light following the partial lifting of a court injunction. The breach also exposed thousands of Afghans who worked with the British military during the 20-year war in Afghanistan. The identities of over 100 British officials, including members of the SAS and MI6, have been exposed in a serious data breach linked to the Afghan relocation program. The leak, originally discovered in 2023 but kept secret under a court order, also compromised the personal data of nearly 19,000 Afghans who supported British forces during the war and applied for resettlement. Many now face increased threats from the Taliban. The breach originated from a UK Special Forces office in London and ranks among the worst security breaches in modern British history. The UK has since created a classified resettlement program which has relocated over 4,500 people thus far and cost over £2 billion and counting. In the wake of the United Kingdom granting 16 and 17-year-olds voting rights in all elections, young potential voters are speaking out about what this new change means to them. While celebrating their newfound say-so in politics, they emphasize the importance of raising awareness in their age group to combat misinformation and ensure a higher turnout. Here's what they had to say.
I think our opinion is strong enough to have the right to vote because, 2 years, it is a long time. 16 to 18 is quite like a maturity jump, but I think a lot of people, even from a very young age, have very strong opinions and they think their opinions should be heard.
I'm happy about it because it's always really annoying watching older people vote but it's not going to affect them, it's going to affect our futures. So yeah, I'm happy about it, but there is that small worry about people who are just going to take their parents' opinions and just vote with what their parents say.
I think it's definitely a problem. I know lots of people who are really very impressionable, but I think it is a small minority of people that will actually get affected by far right or far left social media. And I think the vast majority of people my age are very sensible.
Diplomats from Germany, France, the United Kingdom and the European Union have delivered a stern message to Iran, warning that they are ready to reinstate international sanctions if no progress is made on the nuclear deal by the end of summer. On Thursday, European foreign ministers expressed their determination to act, telling Iran's foreign minister that they would resort to the snapback mechanism, reimposing all international sanctions if concrete progress on nuclear talks is not made by the end of the summer. According to the French Foreign Ministry, this marks the first diplomatic communication since Israeli and U.S. airstrikes targeted elements of Iran's nuclear program in June, an escalation that has further complicated ongoing negotiations. The 2015 nuclear agreement, signed by Germany, France, the UK and others, aimed to limit Iran's nuclear development in exchange for sanctions relief. However, following the US withdrawal in 2018, Iran began violating key provisions of the deal, including uranium enrichment limits. European Union has failed yet again to approve the 18th package of sanctions against Russia on Wednesday. Reason? Another veto from Slovakia. In a new turn of events, however, the country's Prime Minister, Robert Fico, said he would stop blocking the sanctions push on Friday. The announcement was made by the Slovakian Prime Minister on Thursday in a post on social media. Pro-Slovakian vetoes to the sanctions package were justified by Fico as a safeguard against Slovakia getting harmed by a separate EU plan to phase out Russian gas by the end of 2028. Announcing an end to his vetoes, Robert Fico said that Slovakia had achieved as much as it could at this point in its attempts to secure guarantees against damages it could incur from a sudden halt to Russian gas imports. The UK and Germany have signed their first bilateral treaty since World War II, emphasizing the need for closer cooperation on issues like defense, migration and trade. Speaking with TVP World, Daniela Schwarzer from the Bertelsmann Stiftung discussed the UK's renewed interest in rebuilding ties with the EU after Brexit.
The UK seems to be reconsidering its relationship with the European Union and its most important member states. Because the geopolitical situation on our continent has changed with Russia's war on Ukraine and the new security concerns. And so we have seen a number of bilateral initiatives by the UK government with partners in EU member states, but also the first UK-EU summit, which took place in May, which also, kind of was the kickoff for more in-depth discussions on the future relationship of the United Kingdom with the European Union as a whole. And now for the treaty between Berlin and London, I think there are several notable points. One is indeed in terms of defense cooperation, pretty concrete industrial projects on missiles, on armored vehicles and other elements where clearly an industrial interest is visible to cooperate, also to agree on export rules where Germany is more restrictive than other countries. And so here we see a step forward.
The British government has confirmed that plans for a multinational force in Ukraine are progressing, with the UK and France leading the establishment of command structures. The initiative is part of the UK's continued support for Ukraine's defense efforts, including a steady stream of substantial military aid. On Thursday, UK Defence Minister John Healey revealed that the first phase of planning of the multinational force in Ukraine has been completed, with over 200 military planners from 30 countries involved in the efforts. This international force will focus on supporting Ukraine's security after a potential ceasefire, with plans in place for modernizing Ukraine's land forces, enhancing air patrols, and ensuring security in the Black Sea region. This announcement comes as Russian forces have continued their offensive, seizing over 550 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory in June. The UK has pledged over £4.5 billion in military aid to Ukraine this year, with a continued focus on strengthening the country's defense capabilities and supporting the cooperation with Ukraine's NATO allies. The White House has confirmed that President Donald Trump is suffering from chronic venous insufficiency, a condition that causes swelling in the legs after speculation over bruising seen on his hands. The White House addressed growing speculation over President Trump's health, revealing that he has been diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency, a condition in which leg veins struggle to return blood to the heart. The issue was brought to light following photographs of Trump's bruised hand and swollen legs, with raised concerns among the public. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt explained that the bruising on Trump's hand was caused by frequent handshaking combined with the use of aspirin as part of his cardiovascular prevention regimen. Leavitt reassured the public, saying that there was no evidence of deep vein thrombosis or arterial disease. The condition, commonly found in people over the age of 70, doesn't pose significant risks on its own, but can cause discomfort due to blood pooling in the lower limbs. The French economy minister Eric Lombard has weighed in on President Trump's recent threat to impose a 30% tariff on imports from Mexico and the European Union starting August 1st. Lombard stressed that the negotiations with the U.S. have been challenging due to unbalanced proposals from the American side, and emphasized the importance of creating an even playing field.
These discussions are ongoing, and they're extremely difficult because we're facing proposals that are unbalanced. Just as the Americans are imposing high tariffs on us, we must, together with the European Union, agree to also impose tariffs on American imports, so that we're in a balanced situation. Our ultimate goal, as soon as possible, is to have the lowest possible tariffs, because high tariffs are not good for the economy. And that's been France's position from the start.
In a significant move to address Slovenia's housing challenges, the country's National Assembly has approved an amendment that ensures an annual investment of €100 million for the construction of the new public rental apartments over the next decade. Slovenia's Minister for Solidarity-Based Future, Simon Maljevac, celebrated the passage of the amendment, calling it a major milestone for the country's housing policy.
I'm happy that the MPs supported two housing policy laws, which are, in fact, the cornerstone of a new housing policy and mean the start of the largest wave of rental apartments construction in the history of Slovenia. We are fulfilling our promise as the left and the Ministry for Solidarity-Based Future. We put this issue at the forefront of our policy. We have secured €100 million annually, by far the largest amount of funding in the history of Slovenia for the next 10 years. So that means €1 billion for the building of public rental apartments. We're already in the midst of a wave of public rental housing construction. The Republic Housing Fund is building 2,000 apartments this year and the next.
Poland has pulled its ambassador from Hungary, signaling a possible downgrade in diplomatic ties. For now, only charge d'affaires will remain in Budapest, with no plans to appoint a new ambassador.
In what appears to be a downgrade of diplomatic relations between the two countries, Poland's foreign ministry withdrew its ambassador to Hungary on Thursday, June 17th. The foreign ministry currently has no plans to replace the ambassador, leaving only a charge d'affaires in Budapest to handle foreign relations between the two Central European countries. In spite of the long history of solidarity between Hungary and Poland, there will be no Polish ambassador in Budapest for the first time in decades. The current standoff can be traced back to December of 2024 when the Polish ambassador to Hungary, Sebastian Kęczek, was temporarily brought back by the Polish foreign minister to Warsaw. This was in response to Hungary granting asylum to a former Polish deputy justice minister after a European arrest warrant was issued against him.
Poland has definitively recalled its ambassador to Hungary, thereby officially downgrading the level of bilateral diplomatic relations.
Given the long history of cooperation between the two countries, Poland and Hungary are now in an unprecedented standoff. Whether the rift can be bridged remains to be seen.
And so this was all the latest news for now. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska. Please do stay tuned. We have an interview with Benjamin Lee coming up next.